I'm in charge of combining 2 different Ignite sessions into one. And so rather than give you guys like the typical slides, I basically took those 2 sessions and took everything out that I felt like was filler, added stuff in myself, and then also took whatever I felt like was the most like highest impact for you guys. So today, again, we're going to talk about value proposition as well as generating your leads. So who's familiar with what a value proposition is? So? Okay. So, and we'll talk about this. I might repeat myself at times because again, so I go off the slides, but I also just like to talk with you guys and just openly kind of share. So value proposition is essentially your way of communicating your value to a client and why they should use you above and beyond other professionals. Okay. That's a simple way to put it. So 3 steps to define your value proposition. You want to identify, and again, I'm going to jump into each one of these things a little more specifically and give you guys like real actionable steps for this, but just a bird's eye view. You want to identify your knowledge, attitudes, skills, and beliefs that make you qualified to be a great real estate agent. Even if you're a new agent, I'll teach you how to do this. So even if you don't have a track record, even if you don't have, you know, this amazing resume to pull from, you can still communicate your value really well, even above and beyond better, quote unquote, better agents than you. Transform the value you provide and the value of KW and your market center into benefits for your client. Again, helping you to understand how do you communicate like the benefits or the reasons why they should pick you above and beyond other people. And then finally, we'll actually build a simple value proposition statement for you guys. So to understand a value proposition, we first need to understand the purpose of real estate, but more specifically, the purpose of real estate from the eyes of a buyer and a seller. So for buyers, their goal is to find the right home at the best price in the right time with the least number of problems. And for sellers, their goal is to net the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time with the least number of problems. Those are the very simple ways of looking at it. So when you're communicating your value, well, I guess I'll ask a question really quick. What happens to your client's buying or selling experience if you as the agent don't understand the purpose of real estate in the eyes of your client? It sucks. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So in my mind, right, you're not looking at it from their point of view. And ultimately that's what this is perspective or perception, right? It's like you have to understand where they're coming to the situation from or what approach they're coming from so you can properly communicate why they should pick you. So we'll talk about this again here in a second, but an example would be if a buyer's goal is to find the right home at the best price in the right time with the least number of problems, they probably don't care about really any other information you're going to bring to the table about like, you know, how great you are as an agent, let's say. They just want to know, can you accomplish this metric? And if so, they're going to work with you. So your job is to communicate that well. So the top 10 service areas of the buyer value proposition. So I just like to quickly give you, especially for newer agents, just quickly give you a bird's eye view of like, let's say a real estate transaction, but more in simple terms. So when you were working with a buyer, there's essentially 10, I mean, you don't have to remember these 10 steps by any means again, but just giving you a bird's eye view here. When you're working with a buyer, there's a handful of steps and things that you'll go throughout the process. And so at each step, you're basically showing your value to your client, right? So needs analysis, this is where you're basically establishing with your client what it is they're looking for, not only in the real estate transaction, like let's say the specific house they're looking for or type of property, but kind of what they're hoping for from the experience. Pre-qualification or pre-approval, your buyer wants to know you're able to help them understand the importance of getting pre-approved or pre-qualified, as well as having the resources to offer them, such as a lender contact or, you know, what have you. Number 3, neighborhood information. So I'll just tell you guys this too, especially for newer agents, don't feel like you have to memorize every neighborhood down to the, you know, the east side of this street is this value. I've been doing this for like 4 years and like half the time I don't even know how to read a map. So don't stress. It's more just like, can you give, you know, an idea based on the location? And then if they need more specific information, you can always dig into it. There are times when a client's looking, let's say in Cedar Hills, and they want to be in a neighborhood called Juniper Heights. Well, then you should probably know about it in that situation. But for a new agent, like it doesn't matter. Like it's maybe 1 out of every 20 clients are going to be so particular like that. Other than that, they're going to ask you about general areas like, okay, what's the difference between, like if I were to move to Spanish Fork and Orem? Well, Spanish Fork is obviously further south. It's a little bit less expensive and you can kind of ramble on the basic facts. Is there anything else you'd like to know? And then, you know, jump into it further. Home search. So they're going to want to know, again, these are all buyer proposition related stuff. They're going to want to know that you're going to be able to help them with their home search, meaning you're going to be able to help them find properties, you're going to send them properties, and obviously take a little bit of that workload off of them. So I'll give you an example just really quick off the cuff for a value proposition for a home search. So there's a team in our office called the Red Sign team. How many of you guys are familiar with a listing alert on the MLS? Okay. So it's a pretty basic tool, right? You just plug in some criteria, throw their email on there, and next thing you know, it automates a list every day. Pretty simple for us, right? To a buyer, though, how you communicate that's very important. You could always just tell them like, oh, I've got this automated tool that will send you houses. Well, that doesn't sound very cool. The Red Sign team says we have a see it first program, meaning if you work with us, you're going to be the first person to see any new listings that hit the market, whether they're off market, repo, or not repo, I guess it'd be like foreclosure, etc. Well, they're not really doing anything different than what you or I would be doing. They're just presenting the information differently, which makes them stand out as an agent because their clients are going, damn, how'd you get a hold of this program? And all they're doing is the same thing you and I would do. They're just communicating it better. Does that make sense? So that's the important piece of, as you begin to do this and really work in this career, is just learning how to present things in a more flavorful way, let's say. Not that you're misleading or lying, but it's like I mean, the fact of the matter is that is the truth. It is technically a see it first program, and your client's going to see more value in you and your offer, basically, because of the way you present the information. Number 5, make an offer. Again, your client's going to want to know you're able to walk them through the process of making an offer. You understand your documents. You understand negotiating. You have a question?
So just the see it first program concept. What if they're experienced in real estate and they've bought and sold a lot and they've had other agents, give them?
Yeah. So Jenna's question, I'm gonna see really quick. I don't know if these mics are connected. I'll just repeat the question. So Jenna asked, what if the client has previously bought and has had another agent set them up on a listing alert? I'd still call it that, honestly, because again, it's more about, like, they could say, oh yeah, I've had an agent in the past. Okay, great, no problem. But I think it's like more good practice to always present yourself in the best light, regardless of how inexperienced or experienced your client is. And ultimately, a lot of agents, you'd be surprised, they really don't use that kind of stuff. Like some do, but most of my clients that I've talked to that have bought in the past, they're like, oh, I'm the one that found the house. My agent wasn't even sending me the right houses. I'm the one that called the agent and saw the sign and they just wrote the offer, kind of thing. Whereas with my clients, they're like, oh, it's that house you sent me a week ago. I'm like, I don't even remember sending you that because I'm not even doing it, But I go along with it because that's the truth, right? I sent it. All I did, though, is just program the tool to do it. But they don't know that. That doesn't matter. Yeah, like that's just an example. But so like I'll tell my clients, I'm like, yeah, I've got this really cool program where I can make sure you're the first person to see any new listings that hit the market. So every day at 10 a.m., you're going to get a list from me that I've cherry picked all the great options in the market and send them your way. If you see anything you like, respond to the email or text me a link. And they're like, cool. So they're like, hey, Riley, the house you sent me today. I'm like, yeah, no, I was like at the gym or, whatever. I was reading a book. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, after making an offer, again, this is the basic like buyer sell cycle, but I'm just giving you step-by-step like examples of what a buyer would be looking for in your value. You don't have to write all this down. Again, it may go over your head, but it's worth at least discussing. Negotiating to buy. So again, once you make an offer, your buyer is going to want to know that you have the capability to help them negotiate and understand what that actually looks like. Hey, in this market, what does negotiating look like? What's reasonable? How do you negotiate, right? Number 7, vendor coordination. So your buyer, whether they know it or not, I'm just giving you guys the cheat codes. If you have a process or a way to essentially give to your client throughout each one of these steps, you're just going to look like a rock star. So like, for example, vendor coordination, during the process of buying a home, if you're the agent that's like, hey, I've got a lender contact, I have a inspector contact, I've got a contractor contact, even if your client doesn't use it, just you offering those things, they're going to constantly feel like, wow, like this person's going so above and beyond for me. When in reality, it's like, this stuff is so simple. Like it doesn't actually take that much effort. It's like, you just have to build this one time and then just repeat the process with new clients over and over again, right? Number 8, pre-close preparation. So just helping your client to understand what basically is to come, next steps, any last minute, housekeeping or herding of cats to get everything closed up. Number 9, closing. So like a simple thing I say to my clients to help me stand out is I'll say, listen, I'm always going to be at your closing. Believe it or not, some agents don't make the closing. That's a true statement. And some agents don't also get a closing gift, even if it's something as simple as like a little gift card or something. Like I feel like that's a must. Not that your client may be expecting it, but for me, I'm like, they just went through this whole process with me. We're at the finish line. Why would I not celebrate? Does that make sense? And then the most important part of this whole thing, probably in my opinion, is post-closing. So once you actually sell them something, how are you adding value to them or keeping your value at the top of their mind long term? So they basically return as clients, or they repeat business, or they refer you new business. Does that make sense? So again, this wasn't necessarily something I had to deep dive into, but I just wanted to give you an idea on like how you can approach each thing with how do I add value? And as long as that's your mindset, making money, having happy clients will just be a natural byproduct of that. Does that make sense? Okay, any questions on Zoom? Awesome. So I'll just quickly run through the same thing with the seller. I think you guys get the idea, but I'm going to touch on it really quick. So again, with a seller, your needs analysis is like your listing appointment, and you're sitting down with them to discuss selling their home, what they're looking for in that process, pricing strategy. So an example here, and again, some of this stuff is like not necessarily included in this Ignite session, but I'm just giving you guys like kind of a perspective, let's say. An example of like pricing strategy would be some agents make the mistake of running comps, going to their seller, they're newer, they're very excited for their listing appointment. And sometimes they don't even have so just an off the cuff thing, make sure you have an actual listing presentation. If you don't, hit me up, I will give you a great one. Because you don't want to just show up blank and just think you're going to talk your way through it. You want a refinable process every time, because that's how you're going to like determine or I guess guarantee your result, right? So needs analysis is like your listing presentation or your seller's presentation, basically. Pricing strategy, communicating your value here is you doing the homework to help them understand how to properly price their home in this market. But I'll give you just a quick tip. You don't want to go into a listing presentation like most new agents do, and even some experienced agents do, and say, I think you should price your home here. Because then what if they don't agree? You're the bad guy, right? What if you go in, like, for example, I lost a $700,000 listing because county records, another tool called Remine, and an old MLS listing all had inaccurate information that I was going off of that was 1,000 square feet short. How much of a difference in value do you think that could make? $100,000, like straight up in that neighborhood, it was like 100K. So I went into listing presentation, presented to them so well. They're like, yeah, we want to work with you. Let's just quickly talk about pricing. I'm like, cool, no problem. Pull out my comps. Here's where I think you should list it. And they go, where the hell did you get that information? Immediately lost credibility with them. Yeah. And they end up going with somebody else. So I'm like, so that's what I'm saying. Don't ever go in and say, I mean, number one, it's worth verifying ahead of time. Hey guys, just before I meet you later today, I'm looking online. I'm seeing, this is the information on your house. Is this accurate? Cool. No problem. Just want to make sure I had the right info. That's worth doing. And then secondly, when you go into your actual listing presentation, again, don't go in and say, I think you should price your property here. You say something like, here's what I found in your area based on this information. Where would you like to price your home? And if they say, well, what do you think? At that point, if you have to answer, you could say, well, another tip too, I'd always, especially as a new agent, get a more experienced agent to give you a second opinion for two reasons. Number one, it's almost like check your homework. Number two, it's so you can handle the objection basically ahead of time that they need to get a second opinion because you've already done it for them, right? So you can go into that appointment and say, hey, listen, in order for me to find this information on your house, not only did I look at it, but another top agent in my office also reviewed this. This is kind of what we were seeing in the market. Based on this, where would you price your home? Oh, I don't really know. What do you think? Well, the range that I kind of saw was somewhere between here and here, but what do you think? Again, you always put it back on them because your job is not to price their home. Your job is to bring the information and educate them on the proper way to price their home. They ultimately pick. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. Property preparation. So an example of adding value here is even if it's just educating them on what that looks like. I always use what I call the 3 Ds. I learned this from Clay in our office. Declutter, deep clean, what is it? Depersonalize, thank you. Yes, you got it. So those are like 3 simple, like an acronym almost that you can give to your client. And it's just like wherever you can add value or educate is very important. Marketing strategy, that's the meat and potatoes about how you're going to get their house sold. You want to communicate that well. And again, if you need an example of a good listing presentation, I got you, but that's how you communicate your value and how you're actually facilitating the sale. Well, you're good.
So that just really like a skeleton structure.
Yeah. So that's a good question. So Jake was asking, like, for the listing presentation, kind of what does that look like? Is that kind of what I'm hearing? Yeah. So I can show you guys at the end here, if you're open to it. And I was telling Jenna, so last year I was the new agent coach for like almost the whole year, and me, Ritz, and Shoni and Hunter built out like so many resources, like a lot. And so anything like that's like left over from that, I'm happy to give you guys. But my point is, a listing presentation is kind of like, I have a slideshow. So it's like literally a slide deck, and I've strategically made it. So you're going through the right steps at the right time. You're talking about the right things. It helps you handle your client's expectations about certain things, like how to price a home, the timing, what the actual steps are, everything in between. And the reason you want to do that is just the slides are really good themselves. And then you also can obviously come up with your script, like what you say every slide, but that just helps you to know like whether you're having a great day or a bad day, or it's an analytical seller or not. You're kind of covering your bases, so you have a replicatable process. And for me, it's like this listing presentation really does work. Like Ari, for example, it's one of mine and Julie's mutual friends. She used it for the first time, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, like that was like amazing." Like I could, you know what I mean? Because it helps you shine yourself in the best light. Let's say, make sense? Yep. Yep. Right. Yep. Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't. See, I wouldn't. Here's the thing. 80% of people, well, so sellers, we'll talk about this actually in a second, like the statistics. And sorry, guys, on Zoom, I realize you guys probably can't hear the conversation. So let me fill you in. We were just talking about the importance of using a listing presentation, how even though I think that's a necessity, some agents still don't. And again, this is the cool thing about real estate. You can kind of do it your own way if you want to. But in my opinion, I think it's foolish, because in the off chance the seller, like, well, I'll give you another example. There's an agent in our office named Becca Summers. Like, she did this one time, or it was a friend, like really close to her. And she just like waltzed into the listing appointment, assumed she was going to get it, sat down, hit him with the list price, hit him with the commission amount. And they're going, what? Like, what are you talking about? And she ended up going with somebody else because they took the time to actually break it down, right? So it covers your bases, because even if it was my mom, I would still take my listing presentation. Like it's not a case by case thing. It's like, I want to make sure that, number one, I don't miss anything crucial in the process that's going to set proper expectations or provide proper value or reference for my client. And number two, I want to make sure I have a high chance of closing every appointment. I can know if I'm not closing my appointments, it's something in my process, which I can then go back to my material and reflect that on. Does that make sense? Rather than just spitballing every time, like, I don't really know why it's not working, because I have no consistency to what I'm doing, right? It's like when they build a car, they have an assembly line for a reason, right? It's so they know along the way it's going to be like a replicatable process. And if anything's going wrong, they can identify where along the line they need to make an adjustment. Does that make sense? So yeah, I don't necessarily recommend not using one, for sure, especially as a new agent. Like, that's suicide, in my opinion. So just quickly, we'll breeze through this. We'll get to this next section here. So again, the whole conversation piece here is just like different ways to add value and communicate that value to your client, because sometimes they don't know. And it's also important to say this, to communicate to your client throughout the process what you're doing on their behalf, because they don't know all the moving parts behind the scenes. So you could, something as simple as, hey guys, I just coordinated, got your home warranty ordered with the home warranty company. It took you 2 seconds in a text message, but to them, they're going, wow, like they just went out of their, does it make sense? Like you're adding value. So I'll quickly touch on these things. Receive an offer, negotiate to sell. So again, a seller is going to want to know that you're able to receive an offer, review the terms of it, and communicate properly to them what they're getting themselves into, basically. Negotiate if there's things that need to be changed on that offer or to get them a better deal. Finally, sell the property. So in other words, go under contract, get an agreement, pre-close preparation, making sure timing and everything like that works out. They know what to expect and when to move, and what kind of condition the house has to be in after closing and that sort of thing. Closing, again, show up with the, in my opinion, a gift and celebrate them, make sure everything goes smoothly. Post-closing is your follow-up plan. So we'll move on for this really quick. It's in there twice. So again, just kind of driving this home, what buyers want most from their agent, and this is kind of a pie chart, right? Help them to find the right home to purchase, help them negotiate the terms of the sale, help them with price negotiations. The craziest thing about this, so buyers are a lot easier than sellers because a lot of buyers either don't have a reference or number two, they don't have to pay you. So they're less picky. They don't really care, right? So factors buyers value when choosing an agent, they just want to know you're trustworthy. They sometimes consider your experience and sometimes your reputation. But again, mostly they just want to know you're honest and trustworthy. And in my mind, that you can hit those boxes. I'm going to find you the right home, the least amount of time, for the right price with the least number of issues. So if you can communicate that, you're good to go. So example, select one of the factors for a value proposition, right? This is how you rephrase something like that into a statement to your client. So you want to select one of the factors that buyers value and rephrase it into language that explains its value to the buyer. So example, agent is honest and trustworthy could be, hey, listen, you can depend on me to help you make the best decisions, or I will work to serve your best interest. That's how you communicate that as a value to your client. Does that make sense? Not saying you get to memorize any of this, but it's just like giving you the idea, right? Planting the seed. So what sellers want most from their agent? They want help pricing the home competitively. They want to market the home potential buyers. They want to help sell the home within a specific time frame, and they want to find ways to fix up the home to sell it for more. Factors sellers consider when choosing an agent. Again, reputation is somewhat important to them. Agent is honest and trustworthy. Agent is friend or family member. The thing with sellers, again, is that they are actually paying you. And so it's really important that you are able to communicate your value properly, because they're the type that may interview more than one agent. They may have additional wants, needs, or concerns. And also the fact they own a house means they've probably done a real estate transaction prior. So they have past experience, whether it's good or bad, they're bringing that to the table, and you have to be aware of that. Does that make sense? So maybe their last agent sucked. So they're really trigger shy and they have a bad taste in their mouth about agents. It's your job to build that trust and credibility. Maybe their last agent, well, it doesn't matter, right? So with that being said, as a seller's agent, especially as a newer agent, the cool thing with being at KW is that we're the top office in Utah County. We're the top real estate company in the United States at the moment. Like there's a statistic that we sold 1 in 5 houses in the entire US last year. So if you think about that, that's something you could simply just drop in your appointment. Why should I work with you? Well, we sold 1 in 5 houses across America last year. My office in particular is the #1 office in Utah County. Not only am I trained and work with the best at any given time, you can start to see how that could build your value. Even if you personally could say, hey, I've sold 30 houses this year, you can lean on the reputation of KW and kind of the people you're surrounding yourself with to show your value. And to be honest with you, that's also why I like the listing presentation, because if you do a good job with the listing presentation, most sellers are not going to be like, okay, well, let me get under the hood really quick and start to ask you about how many houses you sold last year. They don't care about that. They just want, it's more of a feeling you're providing. It's like, do they feel they can trust you? Do they feel that you've communicated properly, that you're able to sell their house for the most amount of money in the least amount of time with the least amount of issues? As long as you've done that and you're a likable person, I think you're in. Any questions there? Does all that make sense? Perfect. Any ahas or takeaways from what we just discussed?
Yeah, big time. Have it like a point. It was the assembly line.
Yeah.
So if anything is this shape, you go back and say, okay, well, let's cover this again and come back.
Yep.
Later.
Yep, exactly.
Me is
huge. Awesome. So Jake was just saying his takeaway was kind of making sure you have a process and a plan in place, so that way you can not only guarantee an outcome, but you can kind of go back and look at if things aren't working, you can tweak things in your process. Is that right? Awesome. Give me one other takeaway. I would love to hear from you guys on Zoom. What'd you get from today so far? We're not done, by the way. Okay, no sweat. Moving on. If I could use a clicker, cool. Okay, so that's just all I wanted to touch on value proposition. It's just, again, an easy way to think of it is like, how do you communicate your value to your client in a way that's going to make sense based on their perspective of what they, like their core needs are in the transaction, right? Okay, so just to wrap up today's agenda for the rest of the day, I'm going to teach you how to generate business from the people who you know and who know you. We're going to identify who your sphere of influence is and calculate the potential income opportunity from the people you have in your database. So you actually have a metric. If I have 200 people in my database, how much money can I make this year, right? What does that actually equate to? We're going to categorize your sphere of influence and expand your reach. And then I'm going to help you apply the best practices of lead generation. So you guys have an action plan when you leave today to go out and crush it. Sound good? Cool. So a couple of quotes that, again, a lot of this business and honestly life in general is mindset related, right? As you guys probably know, I'm not even trying to approach this like the whole hoorah hustle culture kind of mindset type of thing, but just in general, a good quote here: my fear of failure was greater than my fear of lead generating. Lead generation is the one thing that trips up most agents because it's super cool if you have a real estate license. It's super cool if you have this awesome real estate business. But if you, and I'm going to talk about this probably several times today, but if you don't have leads, you don't have a business. You have a fancy title that costed you a couple grand and you wasted like 200 hours to get it done kind of thing. Outside of that, you have nothing to show for it. So I like this quote because, again, unless you want to be a statistic, which 80% of agents don't make it past 2 years, you have to be more afraid of failing than you are of just talking to people and helping them. Does that make sense? So another thing, I engage every conversation in the spirit of contribution and people are happy to be in relationship with me. I really like this quote because my personal approach to this real estate business has not been quote unquote sales. It's truly been contribution, right? Like the way I speak to my people, the way I even go about making my lead generation calls is not like, ooh, how can I pick up a deal today? It's like, how can I just be a genuine human to these people and go out of my way to do something like acknowledge them for their day, talk to them about their life and these different things, which ultimately translates into getting business, right? Again, people can tell if you're coming from the spirit of contribution or if you're a taker, you're just there to make money on them or get a deal, right? They can tell. So we're going to quickly talk about the 6 core competencies of a business. First core competency is lead generate, capture, and convert to appointments. Present to buyer. Number 2 is present to buyers and sellers and get an agreement. So again, you get the lead, you generate it, you capture the lead, meaning get their contact info, you convert it to an appointment. An appointment's an opportunity to do business with them. You present in that appointment to buyers and sellers and then get an agreement. Number 3, you then show buyers houses or you market a seller's home. Number 4, you write and negotiate contracts. Number 5, you coordinate the sell to closing. And number 6, manage the money. That's more like your own personal business, right? Like once you get a commission where you go from there, but we'll talk about it. Notice though, which one was listed as number 1? What is the foundation to everything? Lead generation, right? Do I need to stay here for a second? I don't want to skip ahead too fast. No worries. Yeah, happy to. Yeah, we're going to deep dive into some stuff today, like I say. And I'm also, we'll talk about this here shortly, but I'm going to hopefully teach you guys, at least my approach of like, how do you make this not feel salesy? Because a lot of people, they get tripped up on this. They're like, oh, I don't want to bug my friends and family. I don't want to be that guy or that girl. You won't be. I'll teach you how to do this in a way that's very like authentic and genuine, but also strategic. Because that's the thing, you got to take action with intent. What's the outcome you're looking for? Moving on. So lead generation, fears and myths. I really like the power of language and kind of mindset. So I'm going to help you guys reframe a couple things. So I think lead generation is really difficult. Really, what that means is I was confusing effort with enjoyment. Lead generation is actually easy. It's just not fun. Truthfully, though, it can be fun, in my opinion. I'll teach you how. Number 2, I don't have time to lead generate. What that really means is I have an issue of making time to lead generate and protecting that time. There's really no reason you can't do it. Number 3, I don't know what to say. What you're really saying is I had to get on the path of mastering the dialogue skills needed in this business. Again, this is the cool thing about real estate, and I think any kind of like entrepreneurial endeavor is it's the, they say entrepreneurship is like the very best self-development plan because you're forced to fill in your gaps in order to succeed. And real estate is just one small example of that. Communication is a skill that will serve you greatly in life in general. You'd be foolish not to learn it for that reason alone, but let alone also for your business. So you can properly communicate your message and obviously make connections and contacts with other people that can do business with you. Lastly, I'm afraid of making mistakes. What that really means is I found that lead generation is nothing more than a set of tasks and skills that are well documented. Again, just like the whole listing presentation conversation, so much of this business is not about I mean, sometimes it's like luck. Like sometimes you just are like, man, I just like I'm getting business out of nowhere. I don't know how. A lot of it is just like building a process that just runs over time so you can guarantee yourself an outcome, right? So just quickly, let me move my mouse really quick, get this out of the way. So just to give you guys an idea, this is like a simple equation I found that basically tells you if you have contacts in your phone, I'd rather say contacts in command or in your database, right? But let's just say if you have 250 contacts in your, in your database. One second, come on now. Okay, I don't know what the heck's going on. Bear with me, sorry. Okay, if you have 250 contacts in your phone, the potential closing opportunity from those contacts is around 20 based on like, I guess, averages from a database standpoint across the board. Potential referrals in database, you could get an additional 5 referrals on top of the 20 closings just from the contacts in your database. So total, or excuse me, another 25. Total potential closings from 250 contacts, and they're basing this on like, we could talk about this, I don't want to get too like above the board here, but the cool thing about KW is we really teach you how to manage your database super well, like down to how many contacts per year are you actually getting out of your database? What's the approach to getting those to happen? How do you automate that? Like, you know, so much. That's the reason I really like KW is because like anything you want to do, you're like, I want to be an agent that makes $1 million a year. There's literally like a step-by-step roadmap to do that, which means anybody can do it. You just have to follow the steps, right? And so this is assuming you are working your database well according to, let's say, the plan. You could have a potential of 45 closings from 250 contacts that are managed really well. Average commission, I guess across the US potentially is where they're getting this, is 5,000. In Utah, it's like 10 grand right now, which means this is technically double. On the low end, you got $225,000 of potential income from a 250 person database. So when we say, hey guys, get your database to 200 people as soon as possible, there's a reason. We're trying to guarantee you like, hey, even if you like scramble your first year and you're struggling between trying to figure everything out and, you know, getting your contact, like you're probably still going to close like 5 or 10 deals, which is going to be what, $50,000 to $100,000 your first year. Then 2-3 years in, you're making $250,000, like no problem if you work the plan, right? And probably sooner, honestly, especially where the market's at as far as average commission is concerned. Any questions there? I just like to show that just to help you guys understand. We'll talk more about database in a second, but just to really drive this home again, lead generation is the #1 key to being successful in real estate. It doesn't matter how good you are at selling houses. If no one knows it's what you do and they do not feel connected to you in a way that has them call you when they want to do it, then it's kind of all for nothing, right? It doesn't matter. I've got great news though. You already have 2 key components to lead generation, a sphere of influence, or in other words, your SOI and a database. I was confused as to why they separated this in this class. And so in my mind, I think of your database as the grand whole. And within your database, you have your SOI. It's a section of your database. So let's say you have 500 people in your database, maybe 200 of those are your SOI. I'll explain what that means here in a second. It'll make total sense. Just to quickly touch on this. So again, we're going to kind of shift gears from a little bit of lead generation conversation, tie that into what that looks like in a database. And then at the end, we'll give you guys actionable steps to go out and make this happen. Your database is your business. Building up the number of names in it and a relationship with those names is really at the very core of what building a real estate business is all about. So I'm going to ask you a question. If I was a doctor and I've been in my practice for, let's say, 50 years, and I want to sell my business, what am I actually selling? Yep. Jen said patience. I got all the J's today. Crazy. But yeah, check it out. Jake, Julie, Jenna, Jen. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it. So exactly. So Jen's comment was you'd be selling basically your book of business or your patients, right? Same thing with real estate. If you do not have a database, or in other words, if you don't have contacts you're consistently engaging with, you don't have a business. Simply, you don't. You have a cool license that no one cares about. And if you don't do this, you'll end up as a statistic, which I'm sure none of you guys were like, hey, let me drop $3 grand and waste like 6 months just to go back to what I was doing before. I'm sure that's not why you're here, right? So this stuff is super important to start to understand. With that being said, again, some of the stuff may be repetitive, but it's for a reason. And I promise you from today forward, most of the stuff, the thing is that to be successful in real estate, it's actually very simple information. People want to chase shiny objects though. And then what happens is you end up going to classes like this 2-3 years down the road and you're like, oh, I remember hearing about that when I first started and I just never did it. It's usually how it goes. It's just the same info. You just have to learn how to put it into action. So We're going to talk about database. I'm going to help you understand in a simple way what your database actually is. So a database is basically the container that holds the contact information for all your leads and contacts, right? So it's where you store all your people, let's say. We distinguish people differently based on the permissions we have to connect with them. So leads, for example, are the people who have expressed interest in a service or offering of yours from social media, other marketing, your website, word of mouth, etc. But you have not established a relationship yet, but you have the right of a one-way conversation with them because for some reason you've gotten their contact info. Does that make sense? So it's not someone that you maybe know very well or you've talked to on 10 occasions, but for whatever reason, they may have clicked on something on your website and now you have their info. They're a lead, okay? A contact are the people you already have a relationship with, meaning there's already been two-way communication established. They know you, you know them, and you have permission to engage in communication with them. This section, again, for some reason, the way they described SOI, I agree with and I kind of disagree with, but they basically say the people who make up your sphere of influence are considered your contacts. What I take from that is that like they are your contacts because you have two-way communication, but I wouldn't really say that your contacts are your SOI. Does that make sense? We'll get into that. So we're just going to quickly talk about the 4 laws of actually building a database. So you guys have an understanding on what the actual framework of this looks like. So building a database, at a minimum, each contact should have a name, their contact information, which I would say would be at least their phone and email, and any past business record. I'd even add to this, any past notes. Your ability to take notes for your people is going to be crucial. I'll explain later when we get into how I like to make calls and actually engage with my database. But taking notes is super powerful because then if you, let's say you suck at following up and it's been 3 months since you talked to the person, you're not just going in your database and seeing a name and a number going, oh, I have no idea where to start. You have a history, like a log. Oh, hey, like I talked to them back in like September. This is what they told me. They were thinking about maybe doing business at that time. Now I at least have something to go off of. Or they bought a house back in 2020 with a different agent, but they had a terrible experience. So I'm their agent now. I just have to stay in, you know what I mean? I have to stay in touch, and you have a kind of a game plan. You have a reference. So again, name, contact information, past business record. That's law 1. Law 2, feed it every day. Okay. We'll talk about the difference between prospecting and marketing, but these are your two tools in your toolkit to growing your database, prospecting and marketing. Again, we'll get into the difference between those here in a second. That's law 2, feed it every day. Law 3, and if I'm going too fast, you can shut me up anytime. Yeah, of course, no problem. So I'll just quickly go over them one more time. So law 1, build your database. You got to have your contact information and past business record or notes. Law 2, feed your database every day. You do that through prospecting and marketing. I'm going to help you guys understand the difference between those in a very simple way here in a second. Law 3, communicate systematically. So what that looks like is segmenting your database based on, I don't really like these words. I might update this, interest and passion, not so much. Really, it's like, how do you break your database up into, let's say, groups or categories so you know how to communicate with those individual groups or categories effectively? So again, we talked about SOI being one of those groups. The way I communicate with my SOI may look a little different than a brand new lead I've never talked to, right? That's just an easy way to think about that. So again, law 3, communicate systematically. I'd also add to this, that means in general, communicate systematically. Not sporadically, systematically, right? So when you're looking at your database, you don't want to just pop in there occasionally and hammer out a few calls for fun and then move on. You want to know that over the course of a year, there's an actual actionable plan or rules of engagement for your people that's going to get you the rewards or the outcomes you're looking for. Does that make sense? Okay. Good. Moving on. Law 4, move my mouse thing. Don't really know where to put this guy because he's kind of in the way. Number 4, service all leads. So plan for a lead follow-up program to leverage every opportunity. So again, this is like when you get new people in your database, what are you doing with them? It's really easy to get lead. Like I remember from like 2020 to 2021, I probably ran like 15 to 20 different Facebook ads, and I generated like hundreds, like probably just under like 1,000 leads over that time period. I would not be surprised, off of like $1,500 spend. And yeah, and then I kind of stuck to following up with them. I like reached out the first week, and then 2 years later, I'm looking at these people like, oh crap, I got this dude named Javier I haven't talked to in, I don't know, 18 months. Like I don't really know. Yep, exactly. But that's the thing. You want to service all leads, and that's kind of, and I'll teach you in a second the actual process of like moving people through your database, kind of tying all this together, because that's why I'm saying you want to, when you, the difference between a lead and a contact, that's the reason I'm teaching you guys this stuff. It may seem like kind of above the board now, but in a second, we're going to tie it all together and you'll see why there's kind of a method to the madness. But again, service all leads. In other words, have a plan for everybody that goes in your database. Simple way to put it. Come on now. Okay. Again, I like these quotes from Gary Keller. There's a reason he's our leader. To succeed at a high level in real estate sales, you must commit to frequent contact with the database with the intent, again, this is the important part, with the intent of building close relationships. He did not say with the intent of selling houses. Why do you think he said it that way specifically? Yeah, so Jen said that's the most important part. Why do you think that is? Yep, love that. So Jen said, yeah, exactly. That's perfect. So Jen said her reason for why, or the reason she thinks Gary Keller said with the intent of building close relationships rather than selling houses is because a machine or a program could technically sell a house or do a transaction, but it's the relationship, the trust, the loyalty, and the service that ultimately makes not only you stand out as the agent, but makes the relationship valuable for both parties. Is that a good way of summarizing that? No, just trying to like recap. Okay, so again, that's the important thing I want to drive home, and you'll notice like as I talk about this, every agent has their own way of doing things. There are agents that are very transactional, that are very business by the book. That's cool for them, but like for me, I want my people to like doing business with me. I want to like doing business with them, and I want them to know I care, and I do that based on the intent I have with the actions I take. So really quick, yep, kind of feel it out. Yeah, Jen was saying there are some times when clients are more transactional than relationship oriented. I would agree. Sometimes that could be an investor, or sometimes people are just closed off, and that's okay. Going back to what Jake and I were kind of riffing on a minute ago, though, that's why having a process is so important, because I always have the, how do I explain this? Like with my process, like everything, if I chose to not be engaged, everything would be so transactional. Like I have my assistants take care of most things. There's a very refined by the book, black and white process we run every time, like play by play. So for those clients who just want to know that they're going to have a good experience, but they don't really care about the warm, fuzzy feeling at the end, cool, they're taken care of because of my process. But it's me engaging with the process and that person that makes it feel relational. Because like, right, for example, for me, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Jen, in our mastermind, for me right now, like I don't really show houses anymore. Like I pretty much am just involved in my business to write contract, not even write the contract, just tell my assistant what to put on the contract, negotiate it with my client and the other person to know we have the right terms, and then facilitate the communication portion of it. But like, I don't actually show houses anymore. I don't even write contracts anymore. I don't schedule inspections. Sometimes I don't even go to inspections anymore. Those are all things that prior to this, I thought were hard pressed requirements to have a happy client. Sometimes my clients are happier now than they were before because I'm not as involved. Like everything runs smoother when I'm not trying to wear all the hats, and I can be as impactful as possible in the moments that matter. Does that make sense? That's kind of off topic a little bit, but yeah. Anyhow, what do you guys take away from this? I'm curious so far.
I try to define the difference between the basic SLR. I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
What your database is. If you try and go back afterwards and define everything as opposed to
right. Get a little for sure. So Julie said her takeaway was knowing the difference between leads, contacts, and SOI, just so you have an idea on kind of where people belong in your database and maybe what to do with them. Is that a good way to put it? Yeah. Jenna?
It's exciting because what you're describing is how I live my life.
Mm.
It's kind of natural.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really on Facebook. I have a following and I post every day something typically. And I'm just constantly engaging people
Mm-hmm.
in my life, but then I throw real estate stuff in there. Or like yesterday, I posted about, working professionals. What is your, I sorry, I should,
No,
anyway.
no, please do.
Like, give me advice on what's your morning routine, or how do you, what habits do I need to develop to be successful? And I just pulled everybody in, and I'm like, I'm contacting so many people every day,
Mm-hmm.
and then people engage in conversations with me. We end up talking in person, or over the phone, or text, or messenger. And so I'm like super excited, because I seriously thought yesterday I was really doubting myself. Like, I don't like the scripts and everything, calling people and be like, who do you know? I don't relate to that. But I think I already have, I was thinking I have 6 leads. I don't. I have 6 prospects.
Yeah.
6 people who want to do real estate transactions. Right?
You have 6 people who have raised their hand and said, I'm ready now, but you have maybe hundreds, if not thousands of people who still fall in the category of like, you could warm them up for that, basically. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay, now go back to for people on Zoom, I'll summarize what we just talked about so you don't miss out. But just quickly to touch on that, going back to that mathematical equation of 250 people, if you have 1,000 people, you basically have $1 million business just waiting to be created if you are willing to put in the work and the processes to make that happen. I heard this quote yesterday, I really like it. People run processes, processes run businesses. Think about that. When you think of someone who's scaled a massive business, it is not because they created more hours in the day or that they are somehow better than you. All they did is just put processes into place that allow replicatable results to occur over time, which allows them to scale over time. People run processes, processes run businesses. So, what's up? Bedros Keuilian. B-E-D. Yep, Keuilian is K-E-U-L-I, I think A-N. So just to summarize what Jenna just discussed for those on Zoom. So she was basically saying how her takeaway, I guess, if I could put it in her words, would be seeing kind of behind the curtain a little bit more on how this all comes together made her realize that she's a lot more capable and equipped to do this, because you can start to look at everybody that you're in communication with, whether that be on social media, whether that be in your phone contacts or friends and family or whatever. There's a place for them within this, greater pie. And if you know how to work them accordingly, there's an opportunity for business for you as well. So Jenna went from thinking she had 6 quote unquote leads for real estate based on people she had discussed real estate with recently, but then now has realized that her 1,000+ contacts she has all technically fit into the greater piece of the pie and lead to, opportunity long-term. So any other takeaways before I move on? Okay. Anything from guys on Zoom or Alicia, I think it was Alicia and Matt, is that right?
I put mine in the chat.
Oh, perfect. Let me pull it up really quick. As I'm just starting out, I'm working on categorizing different potential clients and different ways to communicate with them. Perfect. So Matt, here in a second, we'll actually jump into more specifics on how you can work that. Like basically what I'm going to give you guys today is like the play by play. So I know I'm just talking about what the things mean, but here in a second, I'll actually tie it together with a formula or a process. That way you guys are like, okay, I can put this into action, right? So hang tight for that. Appreciate you saying so, Matt. Okay, moving on. Let's see. So here's where we get into more the nitty gritty. When you first look at this, it's not going to make sense. Bear with me, I'll explain it and it'll make total sense. So as I've kind of talked about and as you've learned, KW has a model for everything. So it makes sense that there would be a model for your number one job of lead generation. Again, this may look complicated. It's actually really simple. And it's about one thing, relationships. You are not in the real estate business. You're in the relationship business. The more relationships you have, the more business you have. This model tells us how to get into a relationship with people, stay in relationship with them, and then ultimately be their real estate expert of choice to buy and sell real estate with when they're ready. Okay. So I'll break it down like here in a second, section by section. But for now, I'm just going to kind of riff on this. So looking at this from the top down, we talked about how you actually generate leads. You generate leads through prospecting and marketing. They label this as lead capture. So basically what this says is through my prospecting or marketing efforts, I get a contact or a lead. Well, I should say I get a lead. I put that lead in my database. So I put their information in my system, okay? My relationship management portion of it is I contact that lead to form a relationship so I can consider them a contact, meaning somebody that I have two-way communication and rapport with. Does that make sense? So again, you're going to strengthen that relationship over time. So again, I get, let's say Jake. Jake hits me up off of Facebook and says, hey, I had a question about a house, or he clicks on one of my ads. Boom, I put Jake into my database. Okay, so through my efforts, Jake came in, put him in my database. I reach out to Jake and I have a conversation with him. Based on that conversation, we build rapport. I now have two-way communication with Jake, which means he is now a contact. Okay. Once he's a contact, I work on strengthening that relationship and I cultivate, meaning I basically work on that contact over time to convert him to a client, right? They say interactive and needs-based offerings. Again, I like to simplify things. What that really means is I'm basically reaching out to Jake and saying, how can I add value to you based on your real estate needs? Or even just being someone that's in touch with you, right? Communicating with you consistently. Once I get Jake to the point where he's ready, he turns into either new or repeat business, or maybe a referral, and the cycle continues. Because once they're in the contact portion, they're just someone you're going to nurture over time, which means over time, they're going to eventually turn into a conversation about real estate that they're either them or someone they know is looking to buy or sell. They're going to do business with you in some capacity. You go back to nurturing the relationship. That's why it's so powerful to build a database, is because really your job is just to, on a day-to-day basis, is to just add people in, turn them into leads, move them to the contact category. And over time with your systems, you'll be in touch with them over and over again, which leads to them consistently turning into business. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what's the cool thing about KW is like, don't get in, I mean, get in the weeds with stuff in the sense of be willing to jump in and learn and like be in the trenches and build this thing out, but don't get so overwhelmed with like, oh, how am I going to get business? Again, it's like if I were to teach you how to ride a bike, like we might have to throw some training wheels on. You might need me there the first couple times, right? But once you get it down, just go ride the bike. Like it's that simple. Execute, right? Okay, so prospecting and marketing are lead generation activities that deliver leads into your business. Again, that's the top of the funnel. Quickly to talk about this, what prospecting and marketing are, or the difference in them. Marketing is money intensive. It's passive. So an example is like I buy a spot on a billboard, which requires money. It's passive because the billboard is working whether I am or not, and it leads to long-term results. I'm probably not going to get a call off the billboard one time or the first day, but 6 months in, people see it enough, I'm probably going to get a call from the billboard, right? Versus prospecting is time intensive, meaning it's not passive, it's proactive. You're involved in the process. It's not working unless you do, okay? Again, proactive, it's out, you have to go out of your way to prospect, to reach out to people, to make calls, to email people, to go knock doors, whatever it happens to be, right? But it's immediate results, meaning if I go and I prospect today, although it's time intensive, although I have to be proactive, I could go get a deal today. I could literally go knock a door today and there's someone out there that would do business with me, right? You just have to find them. It's best practice to generate leads through a prospecting-based, again, that's why it's the bottom of the pyramid, prospecting-based, marketing-enhanced approach. Meaning, especially as a new agent, I am not going to go out and say, I'm going to go buy a billboard. That'd be stupid, right? That'd be really dumb. I'm going to go out and I'm going to hammer the doors or the phones or the Facebook, the Instagram, the whatever, and I'm going to get immediate results from that. And as I do that over time, I can begin to add marketing to my stack to enhance my prospecting efforts. So when I first started, it was very heavy. FSBOs, SOI, door knocking, whatever. I mean, I really tried everything under the sun. I don't necessarily know if I recommend that as a new agent. It's like, I'll just quickly say this. Think of your business as this chair. You need 4 legs to the chair or 3 legs or whatever to make it stable. So your job is just to find out what are those 3 or 4 things for you that you can do to get business over time. One of them absolutely for sure should be your SOI, or in other words, your database. Another one could be social media, such as what Jenna said. It could be door knocking, and it could be open houses. Cool, you've got the chair built, run that play, and just stick to those things long-term until you become excellent at them so you can guarantee results. Does that make sense? With that being said, again, prospecting is low to no cost, meaning it doesn't cost me money to pick up the phone and dial. It yields a quantity of leads, which in turn gives you quality leads. Again, it's like I may call 100 people or message 100 people or do whatever. Eventually, I'll get quality from that quantity. It establishes personal relationships, which again, this is what it's all about. It gives you time over time to build rapport with people. keeps you in direct contact with the market of the moment and also your people at the moment, what's going on in their life or their circumstances and situations. It also increases your confidence and skill. So as a new agent, what is my plan based on what we've just discussed?
Market, prospect.
What would you do first? Prospect or market?
Prospect.
Yep.
My whole sphere of influence.
Yep.
Prospect and decide what the 4 pillars are going to be. Really, open houses, super sphere of influence, whatever.
Yep.
And then when that gets cooking, then you can really market.
Yep. Perfect. Exactly. You can be like Jen and get a TV show. And all he said, once your stuff's cooking, then you market. Like, yeah, then you get a TV show. Cool. That makes sense? Hopefully breaking that down in a simple way. Okay, so yeah, again, it's always prospecting based, marketing enhanced. Prospecting, but here's the thing, prospecting over time is going to look different. Like, I don't know. I probably shouldn't. Again, I've told you guys stuff like my personal business that I don't always have the best practices. I know this stuff like the back of my hand. I taught it to new agents for a while. This is what built my business up into where it is now. But you'll find most top agents are not perfect at this formula, let's say, but they still crush it because over time you pick up momentum, you build out the systems, you build out the reputation. Your work starts to work for you almost at a certain time. But when you're first starting, it's a non-negotiable to run it play by play. When you get to the point where you're 3-4 years in, you've sold 100 houses or something, then it's like, cool. Maybe sometimes you can get away with not being perfect with this process, but initially it's like do or die, kind of like you have to run the play by play. So again, relationship management, quickly touch on this again. Leads are people who you have earned the right to a one-way conversation with. The reason they say earn the right is because for some reason you got their contact info, which gives you the right to reach out. Contacts, you have a two-way communication with, and you've established at least a value-based relationship with. Value-based meaning they know you're going to bug them about real estate from time to time. Or maybe it's more in depth. Maybe there's someone that you are friends and family with or whatever, right? But at the very least, you can communicate with them two-way. Damn clicker. Okay. Your database, again, is your container that holds information for your leads and contacts. A smart database, or I like to call it data bank, allows you to have planned and meaningful communication with your database. Again, that's the whole thing. That's why we say systematically communicate. That's your plan. A planned, meaningful approach to that is systematic, okay? Relationships must be attended to, cared for, and cultivated. Once you have a lead, you want to create a relationship with that person. In other words, make them a contact. Once they're a contact, you want to sustain and strengthen that relationship over time. So yeah, which part of the lead generation and database model represents your database? It's right here, relationship management. Types of communication, you've got phone call, you've got email, text message, face-to-face. You could send them your KW app. You could do handwritten communication as well. Client and referral loop. Again, this is this little section here. Your database will generate new leads in the form of new, repeat, or referral business. So new business probably comes from leads. Repeat comes from your contacts or like your SOI. Same with referrals. The final piece of the model is the client referral loop. Once the lead is converted to a contact, again over here, they can provide either new, repeat, or referral business to your business. Putting it all together, again, as you nurture your leads and contacts and continue to lead generate for new sources of business, you either be transacting from new, repeat, or referral business. The most important thing to remember is lead generation is something that A, never ends unless you decide to get out of real estate. And even then, whatever business you're in still requires leads. So it's a good practice to have either way. Should be time blocked daily for the best result. Again, it's consistency over time compounds kind of idea. And then it determines the size of your business and is essentially the how that will help you reach your goals for starting this career. Again, determines the size of your business because your database literally is your business. So the size and scale of your database equates to what your income potential is and your impact potential is based on the people in your database. Does that make sense? Okay. What takeaways did you get from that little section there?
That's one of the different things about real estate. Most businesses, you gotta put a lot of capital, it's gonna be put in time.
Yep, I love that. So Jen's takeaway was real estate's one of the main or only, I don't know how you say that, businesses where you can create a large business, especially from an income standpoint, without having to invest a lot into marketing. You definitely can. Yeah, for sure. That's a cool thing, is that you building a database, you're basically creating your pool of people to market to. So you're like now, for example, with my business, we send out 2 emails a month. We send out automated text messages. We send out client invites. I'll do phone calls occasionally when I'm not like doing other things, honestly, or send text messages or, whatever. But it's to the point where it's like my people, no matter what, even if I was not involved, still get communicated to from me probably like 20, 30 times a year minimum. Even if I'm not the one picking up the phone and calling, they're still seeing my name. They're getting something of value from me, 20 to 30 times a year. So, but that's my almost marketing approach now, is like, I've got this pool of people I've created, 600 people that I can just drip on over time. And, on a referral basis, still sell like 15 to 20 houses, even if I wasn't actively trying to find business, So any other takeaways? Cool.
Yesterday I thought I was like a failure.
Yeah, I love that. It happens, yeah. Yeah, you'll be fine. And like I say, just it's why it's important to remind yourself, it's like there's so many moving parts, but it's just brick by brick, right? Build out the systems, build out the structure, and slowly but surely you're able to remove yourself. Like, it doesn't all rise and fall on you anymore, because you're replacing yourself. Again, people run processes, processes run businesses. So moving on. That's the thing. All the processes that are in my business, I don't run. You have to. That's another thing we talked about with the KW, is like leverage. You don't have to do it alone. Find. So here's the cheat code. That's what I was gonna say. Here's the cheat code. Run this plan. Get to the point where you're closing 15 to 20 deals, where you have enough money and consistent income to then hire an assistant, pay them to build the processes and systems, so you don't have to. So you can slowly but surely fire yourself from your business and focus on what you do best, which is relationships, basically closing deals, getting the people to work with you, and then closing the deal. So like my assistants, they make and send out my emails, they write my contracts, they coordinate my closings, they coordinate my inspections, they coordinate anything document related with lenders, title, they buy my closing gifts. Sometimes I'm like, dude, it's not even my business anymore. Like, I basically fired myself. But it's amazing, because then I can show up for the things that I'm best at, which is keeping in touch with my people, giving them great service, and kind of from a bird's eye view, watching over the process and making sure there's no gaps. But initially it was like, 10 o'clock at night, and I've got 5 offers to write. I just showed 10 houses, and I still have to respond to, 10 phone calls and emails and texts. And yeah, it takes time, but it's okay. That's the fun part. And especially when you start actually closing deals and you're like, damn, for how much effort I put in, I just made like 10, 15, 20K. You're like, yeah, I'll do it all day. It's no problem. Like, it's not a big deal, So anyhow, we're going to just talk about your sphere of influence really quick. I don't know how we're doing on time. Let me double check. Oh, cool. Yeah, we're ahead of schedule. We'll be done here shortly. So your sphere of influence are the people in your life that you influence and who influence you. They can be close relationships, like your close friends and family, or more distant connections, like your child's friend's parents, a former coworker, a neighbor, or someone your mom went to college with. Oh, you're okay. It's important to connect with your current SOI systematically and efficiently and effectively. I'm going to help you get into this, and also the rest of Ignite too. You're going to hear about this stuff more, but we're going to talk about it today for sure. Come on now, damn clicker. We're going to talk about categorizing your sphere of influence. So, oh my gosh. All right, we shouldn't have that problem anymore. Okay. Categorizing your sphere of influence. Examples. Here's the thing. I personally don't want to compartmentalize my database into 50 different categories, because then it just gets messy. I'm more of the type of, like, I've got groups of people. I've got my SOI and everybody else, basically, right? However, there are tags in Command you can do to help you find people. So when I say categorizing your sphere of influence, I'm not saying segment them into different categories necessarily, but it's something as simple as adding a tag to them to identify where they came from, or maybe an interest they have. because then you can market, like, let's say you have a tag that says dogs. They're a dog owner. Okay, cool. If I ever, like, for some reason get a wild hair and I want to do something for my dog people, then like I can quickly find those people easily in my database. But I'm not going to literally carve out a separate section of my database for those people. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's how I want you to think about this. You got immediate family, you got friends, relatives, neighbors, past coworkers, hobby sports groups, teachers, worship, club, volunteer. Other examples, professional services. So you got your attorneys, you've got your financial planners that you recommend to clients, you've got, you know, your hairstylists, you've got your insurance agents, you've got other agents in different markets, other real estate services, etc. Right? You can tag people accordingly. That's why I like Command, because you can kind of look at your database from a bird's eye view, but then I can tag them if I do need to segment them for some reason, but it's not moving people to like a different section of the database. It's still the same kind of a pot, if that makes sense. Cool. Yeah.
Agents, like in other locations, is there a place in Command I can like where you can search like Louisville and then pull up any contacts from there?
Oh, are you saying like, I see what you're saying. In your database, can you specify location? I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't think so. In filters. Yeah. I was going to just say though, quick cheat code. You might be able to, honestly, but I haven't played with that. Quick cheat code though, I'll just on this topic while she brought up referrals. In Command, there's a section in your CRM called referrals. Cheat code. It's the craziest stuff. You can go in, this is a lead generation strategy, just for example. You could go in there, you can sort, like let's say there's a map actually, I can't remember the exact specifics, maybe we can pull it up in a second, but in referrals, you can look at a map that shows where the referrals across the US are most commonly being sent and received, right? So you can look and say, okay, where are the referrals that are coming into Salt Lake City coming from? And let's say it's like Louisville, Kentucky, or Arkansas, or whatever. Look at those areas and then do a separate tab, pull up the map in that location, search for agents that are like middle of the pack producers who maybe probably don't have referral partners, write up a message or a script, send it to them and say, hey, I'm an agent in Utah. I'd love to handle your referral business. Do you happen to have anybody that needs to do something in Utah? I'll pay you 25 or 30% referral fee. Hammer out 10 to 20 of those in each of the cities that are most commonly referring to Utah, like once a week. It's in Command. I'm going like way off script here, but okay, so I'll show you at the end, remind me, but I'll just quickly explain it at least. Because it didn't pan out, the person ended up canceling, but I'll tell you this is how quickly this worked. I literally just got the idea to do this one day, hopped on, sent out 10 messages. That night got an email and the lady said, I can't believe you just hit me up. I have a listing that needs to be sold in Utah. Can you help me? Literally within 12 hours. Those person ended up changing their mind because at the time interest rate shot up shortly after and they're like, we're not going to move kind of thing. I didn't really do it since because I've been like kind of in and out of real estate a little bit, but anyways, yep.
Just like, we're thinking about buying in Utah, but we're actually probably thinking gonna go to Phoenix. I went on to the KW
referral
group on Facebook. I was like, I need a Phoenix agent. And I had like 20 of them. Just called them up and I found some hot shot. And I was like, hey, if you are about moving down there, maybe reach out to this guy. He's really phenomenal. They did it and I got
Yep.
It was, I didn't do anything.
Yeah, you just connect the dots and like 45 days later you get $4,000. Like, oh, there we go. Super cool. Here's the thing. Well, you can do that. I would recommend doing it through Command for a couple reasons. I'll show you. The reason I say that is because number one, it's less effort. Number two, you can track their production amount. So it gives you stats, their production amount, what area they most commonly work in. And I believe even like reputation potentially is in there as well. And it's also, also you can send a referral agreement through Command as well. So it's all in-house. It's all in one go. We'll come back to that, but just moving on really quick. Okay, so expanding your SOI, the whole goal is to add more personal information to your SOI contacts. Just ask. You'd be surprised. People don't get that weird if you ask for their contact info. It's also really simple. Like you don't have to be like, hey, can I get your you know, your address and your phone number and your email. You could just be like, hey, let me get your phone number. I'm going to text you my contact card. Cool. And then later on, hit them up and just be like, hey, I was going to send you something in the mail or email. Can I get your email? Can I get your address? Whatever, right? I'll show you guys a script here in a little bit. Strengthen casual connections. So again, SOI can just be people that you just generally know and that know you. Join groups that will connect you with people of similar interests and values. Julie and I have a friend named Ari. She loves pickleball and she gets business all the time from it. So she just goes and plays pickleball and, you know, shoots the breeze with people and ends up getting business. And then obviously referrals come from those people as well. Yeah, right, all the things. Yeah. Well, yeah, awful. I know, it's like way more intense than it looks, but I'm like, crazy. Okay. Generating leads from your sphere of influence. This is the script that they gave us. I added my own because again, not that I don't like KW scripts, but I kind of don't like KW scripts, honestly. The reason why is because it's like, hello, this is Riley with Keller Williams Westfield. Who do you know that's looking to buy or sell in the next year? I'm like, where we talk about how it's all about building relationships. What part of that conversation has anything to do with relationships? Not any of it, right? It's about you. So I'll show you my approach, but here's my favorite way of asking for referrals. I have a goal of helping 20 families this year with real estate. Who do you know I can help at this time? Okay, so I'll just break this down. First of all, most time you share a goal with someone, they're going to want to support you. So that's a psychological hack. Number two, I didn't say sell a certain amount of houses. I said helping families. Again, intention with your actions is very important. And then I didn't say, do you know? I say, or if you hear of someone with it, no, they're not going to hit. If you say that, if you hear of someone, let me know. They're not going to. Do you know of somebody? No, I don't. Who do you know? Specifically, I'm asking them very directly. Who do you know that I can help at this time? They're probably going to go, let me think about that. Okay, if nobody comes to mind, fine. But they're probably going to be like, oh, you know, my friend did mention, cool, put me in a group chat with them. Let me help them out, right? So I base mine on that because after doing, like I used these scripts for a while, didn't really like them, felt very inauthentic. People obviously don't want to answer your call in the sixth go, and all you ask them is, who do you know is looking to buy or sell, right? You're going to burn through people quickly doing that. I'll teach you a better way. So this is my referral ask script. That's what I prefer. We'll skip ahas right now. Keep moving. Okay, so as far as your lead generation is concerned, how you actually put this plan together, because again, it all starts with generating leads first, then you work the database plan and lead generation model from there. Number one, you need to prepare. So that means mindset. If you need to practice, maybe your scripts, and also write down your call list. So what this would look like for me personally, mindset, I like to put headphones in when I make my calls and play music. So that way, in between the call, I'm not tempted to hop on Facebook or Instagram or something because I'm getting stimulated by something. And I also play music that gets me hyped, like gangster rap or something, where I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Where I'm like, got 50 Cent bumping in between my calls. So I'm like, oh, yeah, we're gonna make some money today kind of thing, right? So that's my personal thing. So mindset, it could be, affirmations, mantras, meditation, prayer, music, whatever gets you in that groove where you're like, I'm about to get some shit done, right? Number two, practice. So that could be script practice. That could be working with a role play partner, whatever helps you feel confident and prepared to make your calls. Number three, call list. You don't want to just jump on and be like, who am I calling today? Write down 10 or 20 people. Be like, these are my people. Okay. Because then you're going to get it done versus like calling one person on command. Then you got your tabs open. You get distracted by your email. No, call list. Okay. Number two, take actions, have conversations. So how you should measure your lead generation is not by, oh, I just did it for an hour today, but by conversations. So you actually track, like I had a two-way conversation with this gentleman and I made sure I brought up real estate. That is a contact. That's what counts. Okay. The number three, maintain. So making sure your database is up to date, whether that be notes or new contact info or whatever. And lastly, follow up. You have a plan to be in touch with that person again at a later time. This is how you win right here. Bam. So we'll go into some strategy to help make this process easier here in just a second, but I'll give you guys a second to write it down. Any questions or comments from you guys on Zoom or even you guys in person? Teaching about this stuff makes me want to sell some freaking real estate. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still selling real estate at the moment, but I'm working on other things. But then when I do stuff like this, I'm like, man, I really like this. It's a good career. Cool. Are we good to move on? All right. Okay, we're going to talk about protecting your time block. That's the most commonly heard thing. I don't have time, or oh, the day got away from me. Don't make excuses. We got to make it happen. So I'll teach you how to protect your time block. So there's a little story in here I'll tell first that kind of relates to this. So build a bunker, find somewhere to work that takes you out of the path of disruption and interruption. Where will you work to avoid distractions? So kitchen table is probably not a good option, or a place where people are going to be frequenting. Don't do that. Find your own little spot, bunker down. Okay, I'll tell a story really quick that'll tie this together. So there's an agent, I can't remember his name, top agent at KW. That's where I heard about this. He was struggling to do his lead generation for years on end, hired an assistant. He's finally like, hey, enough with this. I need to figure out how I'm going to make this happen. So his strategy was build a bunker. So he'd lock himself in his office. He'd store provisions. So he'd make sure he has his supplies, materials, snacks, beverages, whatever he needs in hand to avoid leaving his bunker. So question for you, what provisions will you have in place? Do you need some snack foods? Do you need music? Do you need water? Whatever is going to help you stay in place. Sweep for minds. So he would basically, I'll just tell you the story. The guy would basically go into his office and he tells his assistant, okay, I have to make my calls for the next 2 hours. He would take off his pants and give his pants to his assistant and say, you cannot give me my pants back until my calls are done. And then he would lock himself in his office. He would write down his call list and he'd disconnect his internet. So think about that. He'd lock himself in his office. He'd make sure he has what he needs on hand. He'd sweep for minds. So he'd literally take off his pants, disconnect from the internet so he could not look at his email or internet browser at all. And then he would enlist support from his assistant to hold him accountable. That's a very intense way of doing this. Not saying you have to do that, but just an idea, right? So absolutely. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, that's an easy way to look at this is you got to think. Here's the thing. People, we were talking about this yesterday with Jen and some of the group. Everybody wants to be like, oh, I'm going to grind for 10 hours a day. It's stupid, truthfully, because you're not actually going to be effective 10 hours a day. You legitimately could build probably $400,000 plus a year of real estate business on 4 hours a day of work, of focused work. That's what this is. Set aside 2 hours, hammer out your calls, set aside another 2 hours to, play housekeeper, get things done, move things around in your deal, coordinate whatever you need to do, go show houses, and then just enjoy the rest of your day. You're done. Versus, oh, I got to make my calls. Okay, I'm going to sit here. Then I'm going to get stuck on Instagram for a half hour. Then I'm going to text my friend or my mom because I'm bored and da-da-da. And next thing you know, it's 6 hours has gone by and you've done nothing, right? Just focus. 9 a.m., you sit down, you grab a cup of coffee, throw in some gangster rap, you get it done. And then the rest of your day is awesome because you don't have to worry about it, right? Cool. What takeaways do you guys have from what we just talked about? Okay, get pumped, yeah.
I come into the office every day for about 4 or 5 hours, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I get home, it's really difficult to work. So I think I'll just keep doing that. Just come down here and go to this room or something and just work here because it's a mindset,
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I think it's I don't come in the office as much as I used to, but I definitely was more effective in my real estate business when I did, for sure. Yeah, for sure. You can, I say make a call list. Even if you're working off of a database, you can still print off the client sheets, take handwritten notes on your call, and then just put them in the system after. Okay, well, today we're gonna give you what to say. Okay, here's my goal. Here's my goal with this conversation yesterday with you and today is that by next week you're hitting me up going damn, things are different. Yeah, cool. Okay, we'll move on. Success system. So we talked about this. You probably heard about this. Daily 10-4. This is a very simple formula to make sure you're moving the needle forward with your business. 10 conversations. Again, conversations in my mind are you spoke about real estate. So I don't care if you call someone and you talk to them for an hour. If you did not bring up real estate, that was a casual call. That doesn't count, right? We're here to play the game. So we gotta take a score. But I'll show you how to do that in a way that's not salesy or weird. And the conversation is mostly about them. So give me a second. Number of contacts added your database. So 10 contacts added, meaning new information put in your database. Handwritten notes, easy peasy, write it to the people you talk to. Hey, thanks for chatting with me today. It was so good to catch up, whatever. 10-5-1 social media engagement. To be honest, they added that after I stopped being the coach. I don't even know what that means. So I don't know. Probably like 10 likes, 5 comments, 1 direct message, if I had to guess is what it is. Enrichments, don't even know what that is. We're going to move on. Okay, so just basically just have some form of measurement where you're like, this is how I know I'm going to every day crush it type of thing. We'll come back to role play here in just a second because I'm going to show you a script again, conversation list. Okay, cool. So moving on. For those on Zoom, do you guys have any questions or takeaways, comments? If not, I'm going to show you guys some resources you guys can use. All right, sounds good. Every time this happens, let's see. All right, give me just a sec. I will show you guys a couple different things really quick. What was I going to show you? Oh, I'll show you just for fun. We talked about listing and seller presentation. I'll show you those really quick, or listing and buyer presentation. But anyways, I'm going to send you guys get this real estate playbook. I don't know if they give it to you anymore when you start. You did have this? Dope. So in the real estate playbook, if you don't have it, just let me know. It's kind of all like, I need to probably have them go through and update it. It got all screwed up for some reason. But besides the point, the most important part that I was talking about today, or wanted to talk about today, is this the one I updated? Oh my gosh, this is like all over the place. Hold on. Oh yeah, this is the one that I sent. Okay, bear with me.
Riley, do you have my email as well?
I probably don't, but I'll get it from you for sure. Come on now. Like, can I just like breeze through the pages so I know? Okay. Come on. All right. So I call this an apology script. It doesn't have to be formatted that way every time. I just do that because most people suck at making their calls. And so they're like, well, what am I going to call them about? It's been 6 months. That's why it's called an apology call. You're calling and saying, hey, I suck at following up. My bad, right? So this is a script that I use for my SOI calls. I've written this one specifically for new agents. If you're not, like Jen, for example, you're not a new agent, just adapt it. I can send this to you. So here's what it would look like if I was a new agent, okay? So I'd reach out. Do you want to be my role play partner? Okay, perfect. You don't have a mic. Okay, I'm gonna role play pretending that Jake's not here. I'm just gonna like pretend I'm talking to myself so the people on Zoom can hear. So let's say I'm calling Riley. So a great way to kick off the conversation, and ring, ring. Hello. Hey, is this Riley? Yeah, what's up? Hey, Riley, I owe you an apology. Life's been hectic. I haven't really done a great job at keeping in contact with you. And I really have a goal this year, reconnecting with the people I care about. So I was just wanted to call and see how life's been. How you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. Thanks for calling, man. Awesome. I'm curious, how's your family? Right, Ford method, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. Simple, small talk formula, and you can adapt the questions however you need to make it feel authentic. Family. So it's called Ford, family, occupation, recreation, and then dreams. So if I'm talking to Riley on the phone, I'd say, well, cool, man. How you guys doing? What's new? Oh, we're doing so good. Like I've been, I'll talk as if I was talking to myself. I've been doing really good, man. Like lots of changes. I've been working on a couple different businesses. I'm still selling real estate, been traveling a lot. It's been really cool. Cool, man. How's your family? Well, they're doing good. My mom actually moved down to this random town, and my stepdad's working out of town, and I'm just like BSing, talking with them. Cool, sounds great. Well, hey man, are you still in real estate? Yeah, I'm in real estate. I'm actually doing that. I've been coaching people, working on some other spiritual stuff. It's been super cool. Awesome, man. I'm curious, like, what's your goal with that? I don't know. I'm talking to myself. It's kind of weird, but you get the idea. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. So then I'd ask, Riley, okay, well, what's your goal with your job? Well, yeah, I'm still going to sell real estate for the time being, and I'm working on this coaching business and just really want to help people do a lot of like deep trauma and spiritual work to help them lead better lives. That's awesome, man. Really cool. Yeah. Well, I'm curious, are you still going to the gym a lot? Again, recreation? Yeah, I'm still training. I've been actually training for a Spartan race, doing jujitsu, a bunch of random athletic stuff. That's super cool. What else are you doing for fun nowadays? I don't know. I've been traveling a lot, and I know, right? Yeah, it's all the so if I ask a question, I'm the caller. If I'm answering it, I'm the the person being called. Okay. So again, just to summarize, so I'd go through that script. This is the cool thing about the script is number one, you address up front the reason for the call. Now, if it's someone you like, Jen, if it's someone you already talked to consistently in your database, don't call them and say sorry. Just be like, hey, I was just calling to check in. How you doing? I'm doing great. Cool. And then go right into forward. How's your family? How's your job? What's new? What are you doing for fun? Have any travel plans coming up? What are your plans for the year? And the thing is, you're taking notes the entire time. Like you're literally like, he said that, his family's doing good. His son's going on a mission next month to, Nicaragua, and he's super excited. And he's got a trip planned to Mexico, and he's working at this steel refinery, but he's actually looking for another job. You're documenting those things. I'll explain why. So again, the first part of the conversation is all about them. Like this could be like easily a 5 to 15-minute chat alone, just about them. Question, how often does anybody go out of their way to just ask you about your life in general? Probably never. How valuable do you think it is for them to have someone go out of their way to call and be, because the thing is, they say to be an interesting person, you need to be interested in others. By asking them questions, I promise you, they're going to leave the call going, God, like I love Jen. She's so awesome. Even if Jen said nothing about herself, just by you giving them the space to talk about themselves in an interesting and interested way, they're going to leave the call being like, that was worth my time, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So Jen said that most of the time, especially people who know she's in real estate, inevitably on the call will bring up real estate. But if they don't, then she usually doesn't. I'd recommend you do, but I'm going to teach you how to do that in a way that doesn't feel inauthentic. So, yep. Okay. So I get to the forward script. Conversations coming to a close. I'm a new agent. So I'll start off, I'll give you two examples. On one hand, I'll start with if I was a new agent. On the second hand, because Jen's here, I'll talk about it as if I wasn't, right? For long-term use, how this would work. So assuming a new agent, I'd say, that's awesome. Hey, listen, Riley, I'm really grateful you made time to catch up with me. It's been so good to chat with you. I've had a ton going on myself, and I actually just made a career change. And I'm going to pause, and they're going to say, oh, really? What are you doing? And I'm going to say, yeah, I actually just jumped into real estate. I'm with KW. Here's the thing. I need to update this. This is the script I have not updated. It used to be longer. I'm going to just like cut it out. So check it out. Actually became a real estate agent with KW. Maybe say whatever you want. It's been awesome. I really enjoyed it. That actually reminds me, again, that's your reason, right? That reminds me, I'm going to send you something in the mail. Do you mind if I get your address? No, I don't. Cool. You just got additional contact info. Awesome. I appreciate it. And listen, to hold myself accountable, I'm just sharing my goal with people. I have a goal this year of helping 20 families with real estate. Who do you know I can help at this time? Maybe they do, maybe they don't, doesn't matter. They give you a referral, just ask them to be added to a group chat or pass along the info. If not, you say, thanks. Hey, maybe we could grab lunch sometime soon, take you for coffee, whatever. Or, hey, I'll talk to you later. It's been great. The reason I do it this way is because, again, because the first part of the call was all about them. And as long as you do this like a little sly, they're not going to feel like the call was about real estate because you're saying, oh, that reminds me, right? Or, yeah, I've had a lot going on myself. You actually just made a career change, a bunch of other stuff. Again, it leads the conversation naturally in that direction without you just coming out cold and being like, hey, who do you know who's looking to buy or sell? Does that make sense? How's that feel? Okay. So if I was not a new agent, here's how the call would go. So I get done with the forward script. I'd say, hey, so good to catch up with you. Hope you're doing great. And then I may say something like, yeah, I'm sharing my goal this year with people. My real estate business, I hope to help 60, I don't know, you do like 70 deals, hoping to help 100 families. You happen to, or who do you happen to know that I could help? Chances are, Jen, too, with the people that you talk to, they know you're in real estate. They probably like you, trust you. They're not going to be offended. And in fact, I feel like you're doing them a disservice if you don't ask how you can help. Because then this is like, here's the thing. As a real estate agent, unless you do other things outside of this or you contribute to people in another way, this is the way you contribute to people in your database, to society. So it'd be foolish of you to not initiate that conversation. How can I show up and be of service to you or people you know? Basically what you're asking, right? If you do it in that way, especially I do it in a way that's very casual. That's why I say things like, oh, that reminds me. It didn't remind me. I knew when I called you, I was going to ask the question. But again, communication is very important. Similar to the value proposition conversation, it's how you bring things up that's important. It's how you say it just as much as what you say. Because if I could, does it make sense? So that's what I recommend. I'm happy to send you guys this script. But yeah, when I do my calls now, I do the Ford method, get to the end of the call, and I always will just end the call with basically just like bringing up my goal or casually asking for a referral. And then we move on. And they're happy and I am too. Because again, 75% of the conversation was about them. The cool thing is later when I call them, I'm going to say, hey, Riley, what's up, dude? Not much. Hey, how'd your trip to Mexico go? Oh my God, he remembered that. How's you said your nephew was going on a mission. Did he get his papers? Yeah. Wow. Does it make sense? You're taking notes. They're going to feel like, because you truly do care, they're going to feel that because you're going to talk about things that's like, wow, he called me 2 months ago and he's bringing up the fact that I mentioned my daughter was getting married or that we had this trip planned or something tragic happened and he's checking in on me. That's how you build relationships with people because you're actually getting to know them as a person, intimately involved in what's going on in their life rather than just, hey, I'm an agent. Can I get some business? Nope. Okay, I'll call you in 3 months again and ask the same question. Right? Good.
Yesterday, I went to the ethics class at UCAR,
Mm-hmm.
and they told me I'm not allowed to use religious language.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't say a word. I can't say fishing, anything. And I don't even know how it's going to go. They just said,
In listings, you can't, but do it on the, right,
no, he said, if you're showing a house and they're asking, what word is this in, or how's it used, or whatever, I'm not allowed to say, I'm not allowed to use the word board.
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
you can send them a reference, like, here, you can find out about it.
yeah.
Yeah. Jenna was just asking about religious conversation. Like if you're showing a house and someone brings up religion, how do you go about that? The correct answer is you just send them resources, but you can't chime in and say, oh, this word's great or this word's not kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. On a phone call, I wouldn't, yeah. Because you don't record your phone calls. Like, yeah. Yeah. Are you interested in learning about our Lord and Savior? It's, yeah. Here's my bit on that. Just ethics related stuff in general. I definitely think the rules are there for a reason. And I'd say most of the time, do your very best to follow them. And there are certain times when that's just like dumb. Like it's going to come up. As long as you're not the type of agent that's like truly being unethical, like steering people or going against the protected classes or acting unethically in the way you transact with people, they don't know first of all, most people, unless you're dealing with like a real estate attorney, don't know the rules. And secondly, like as long as you're truly just showing up as a good person, like you're fine. Like there are so many. Yeah. Yeah. It's best to, yeah. Well, it's best to not, yeah, in relation to stuff like that. Let's say someone asks like, how is this neighborhood or how's the ward or whatever. It's best to not give personal opinion. If you have factual data you can provide, maybe it's worth sharing, especially if it's like, yeah, someone got murdered in this house and I know about that, but I'm not going to tell you. No, you should probably tell them that. Yeah, and they're Mormon. Yeah. Yeah. There's a Mormon serial killer on the loose in this neighborhood. But no, what I was going to say though is like, but it's probably best to not be like, yeah, I heard. Be like, no, listen, if you are curious, maybe go talk to the neighbor. Like, here's the directory for the local church. Like, go speak to them if you have questions. I personally don't know, but I'd love for you to find out if that's important for you to make this decision. Right? Yeah. Yeah. No. I think it more pertains to like out in the field with clients, you can't steer them based on that type of information. But if I'm in a conversation with somebody, I talk about crazy stuff with my clients. Like, that's what I'm saying. This will get you into some intimate stuff in their life. Like people never have the opportunity to talk about themselves or their life. Don't be surprised if you hear some crazy stuff like, I found out my husband was cheating on me. Wow, that's awful. I'm so sorry. Like you're going to have some actual genuine human conversations with people. So be ready for that, but be excited too, because it's like, these are people that are going to like, of course they're going to remember you long-term because you're actually being a human being. You're showing up like you care because you do. You're not just bugging them about, can I sell you something? Or exactly. And over time, it just gets better where it's like, Again, you take notes. Like I call some clients, you know, I don't know, had deep conversations with people that I'm like, dude, I would never have had this conversation with this dude. Like prior to this, we did not connect, but for some reason using this, we're tight. Like I could call him and talk about like whatever, you know, but anyways, so that's my thoughts. As far as the command thing's concerned, if I can remember my command login, I'll show you really quick. The beautiful thing about passwords being saved, but then it also is like a curse if you forget. Oh yeah, I'll just, honestly, I'll just do that. Good call. Okay, so over in command, you've got this referrals tab. Can you guys on Zoom still see my screen really quick?
Yeah, we can see it.
Cool. So I'm going to teach you guys how this referral thing works. So come into referrals, you go over to map, and you can sort right here, referral patterns. Okay. And then I'm going to say, okay, so check this out. So there's a section I'm pretty sure where I can say like received or give me a second, let me zoom out. What is going on? Oh, right here. Okay, sent or received. I want to say received. Where is Utah commonly getting referrals from? And this is Orem. I'm just going to say Salt Lake City. Probably a little more general. Okay, Tucson, Arizona, Anchorage, Alaska, Goodyear, Arizona, Scottsdale. So apparently Arizona's popping. So if it were me, I'd be hitting up every agent in Arizona like this week. So, came from? So here's what I do. Like you go up top, you duplicate your tab. So with keeping this map in mind, I would then come over here to, yeah, okay, check this out. So you can then sort by production. So let's say I want to go to Goodyear, Arizona. Okay, so I pop up Goodyear. Next thing you know, I got a list of all the agents in Goodyear. And I come over here and I sort it by closed units in this area specifically. Well, chances are Beth that sells, you know, 506 units, I'm sure she's probably not going to refer a new agent a deal, or she probably has that covered. But if I scroll down to, oh my gosh, come on now. I scroll down and I'm like, okay, it's, I don't know, it's a gut feeling. All right, I like, let's see, Steve. See what Steve has. Cool, Steve has 34 units. That I try to find people personally that are within my production, like 20 to 40 units, somewhere in there, right? Cool, Steve sounds great. So I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna add Steve. Yep. I'm gonna send Steve a personalized message, except I'm not. I'm gonna type up one message that I'm just gonna change small details in and send it to like 15 to 20 different agents in this city alone. And I'm gonna say, hey, you know, hey, this is Hunter with KW. I tend to commonly have people who are looking in Arizona. Would you like to be my referral partner? If so, do you happen to know of anybody right now who needs help in Utah? You're starting by saying, I'm going to send you people when I have them. But in the meantime, who do you know who you can send to me, right? Boom, I send that out. Next thing you know, I send it out to 30, 40 people. I probably am going to get one bite. That's just, like, you could put that in your lead generation strategy and it's awesome, right? And then to make it even more specific, or take it a step further, you could then hop on your social media or send out an email or text your database and just say, hey guys, just want to let you know, I'm really well connected to agents all over the US. So if you guys happen to know anybody that's moving and they want to get the best deal and service in that area, let me know. Boom, get people to reach out to you, connect the dots, and like Julie, make a couple grand for setting up a phone call, basically, right? So that's like another random thing that I've done before. That's really been helpful. Hopefully that helps. Before we wrap up, I'm going to send out the, actually, I want to show you guys the presentations really quick. So this is my presentation personally. The one that I made for the team is identical. There's just a couple tweaks, but I know this has nothing to do with what I taught you guys today. It kind of does though, a little bit. So just to give you an idea of what a listing presentation would look like, I'm not going to go through it verbatim because it would be here like another half hour. But first of all, I call it a guide to selling your property. So I don't say this is my sales presentation, right? I say it as if it's valuable to them. Here's how we're going to sell your property. You probably want to know that, right? Cool. Let's talk about it. So first thing, I have my credentials there. Just talk about like my personal track record. You don't have to do this. You can just have your contact info. belief and mission. The one I made for the team is slightly different, but you're basically just saying, hey, we put you first. That's how I do business. I put you first. That's my belief. If I help you, I get helped, not the other way around. Does that make sense? Cool. We talk about how people actually find houses. I've got a really, so for how I go through this slide. So really quick, Mr. and Ms. Seller, I just want to talk to you how people find houses. So in 2020, statistically, 29% of people found their house from their real estate agent. 52% found it from the, I need to update this, obviously, it's from 2020, but whatever. 52% found it from the internet. In my mind, the best marketing plan is one that targets channels that buyers are already using to find houses. So my personal marketing plan is very heavy on the first two, since statistically, that's where you're going to make your money, but we also include everything else. Okay, let's talk about how most agents market a house. So I'm giving contrast. Most agents will put a sign in the yard, they'll put it in the MLS, and they'll pray it sells for top dollar. Don't you think you deserve something better, Mr. Miss Seller? Oh, of course. Okay, great. Here's my marketing plan. 1,000+ websites. So we do a lot of internet marketing. We post it on Facebook and KSL, which most agents are too lazy to do. I also do targeted advertising. You ever, I use an example. You ever talked about Cabela's fishing poles, and next thing you know, you got an ad on Facebook? Well, I have access to that technology, and I use it to sell your house. Cool. Moving on. Unique marketing. We do a open house. We present our listings to 100 top agents in Utah at our office every week. We do high quality professional photography and aerial photography. I try to list your house no later by a Wednesday and give them the spiel. Why does this matter to you? Because the more money the more eyeballs I can get on your property leads to more feet in the door, which leads to more offers in my inbox and more money in your pocket. So like, again, you can get creative with how you script it. Price right. We talked about, oh my gosh, what the heck just happened? No, I don't know how to do this on my Mac. I just go like, it works, but here, how do you give that? There we go. Cool. We talk about pricing. Again, the idea of a great listing presentation is you're kind of like, you kind of think, what are all the areas that I need to talk about? What are common objections that probably come up during a presentation? How do I handle both in that time? By the time I get done with this, I've taught them how they need to price their house. I've shown them statistically what happens if they do it wrong. So when they look at, hey, where should we price our house? They're going into it with the expectation like, we have to be like mindful of what we're doing here. So what you paid for it doesn't matter. What you need doesn't matter. What you want doesn't matter. What your neighbor says does not matter. What another agent says does not matter. Cost to rebuild today does not matter. What price says on Zillow does not matter, right? None of that matters. So if that's what you're basing it on, that's foolish. The value of your property is determined by what a buyer is willing to pay, what an appraiser said it's worth, and what you're willing to sell it for. Anything outside of that is irrelevant. So then when I sit down and I say, okay, Mr. Miss Seller, here's the information I've got for you on your property. Where would you like to price it? And they go, $550. Well, Zillow said, remember, it doesn't matter. We're not basing it on that. That's stupid, right? We're not going to do that. So anyways, have a track record in there, results like past houses I've sold, talk about the closing process so they can understand the timeline, where their participation is in relation to those timelines. Where do we go from here? I help them coordinate photos, send out key deadlines, market to peers. They do the 3Ds. And then bam, I close. Cool, next step, guys, we're gonna sign the listing paperwork. Do you guys have any last questions or concerns before we move forward? And they're gonna hit me with whatever objection they have if they have it. And if not, I'm assuming they're moving forward and I'm getting pen to paper, right? And then obviously coordinate any needs prior to listing. So that's the idea. Now I know whether I was prepared for this appointment or not, as long as I can run comps before the appointment, even if I'm, hair on fire kind of day, I can show up and trust that my process is at least going to be 75% viable, and trust my skill set I built that if, I got to chicken scratch some stuff together or handle objections on the spot that I can, but I can always lean on this to get me at least 3/4 the way there. Does that make sense? Cool. So that's my listing presentation. Again, I totally did not, oh my gosh, what is going on? Oh yeah, for sure. Need to update my photo. And then I also have a buyer presentation. I'm trying to decide which one I want to send you, because the one I made for the team, in hindsight, I don't really like a whole lot. It's good, but let me see if I can find it. I call it buyer crash course. I don't call it like my buyer presentation, because then how I guide this to people is like, if I'm going to pitch the buyer on meeting with him, like, hey, listen, let me run you through my crash course. It'll basically teach you everything you need to know about buying a house in a very simple way. Whether you use me or not, I would just love to make sure you know, so you're ready to participate in the market. Like, cool, why not? It's going to take 20 minutes. Sure. Right. I like this presentation, but also it is a kind of I'll show you my old one that I like a little bit more. It's a lot more simple. Same kind of thing. Your needs come first. Again, I think this is too much personally. So my old one, I really like because it's very simple. Let's see if I can find it really quick. Come on. Dude, what is going on with this freaking keyboard? What is going on? Does the D key not work? Good Lord. Okay. Come on. This is my old one. Way simple. Basically, comprehensive guide to buying a home. I always talk about, like, there's not a lot of information on buying a house. I give them step by step. So I'm setting their expectation. Hey, before you look at houses, you got to go meet with a lender. Once you meet with the lender, they're already sitting down with me at this point, obviously, but I'm like, step 1 and 2 are interchangeable. You either need to meet with me or meet with the lender first. So that way we can set expectations, get you prepared. Then we're going to go look at houses, how writing an offer works. Once we get the offer accepted, what happens? What does closing look like? What happens after we close? Talk about the contract deadlines, next steps. And then I'm like, cool, you ready to work for me or work with me? And if so, I close for the buyer broker. Cool, you just got to sign this document. We're off to the races.
Okay, so I have one of my good friends has been looking at houses for probably 6 months with one of her coworkers, but she has not signed a contract.
Mm-hmm.
She's asking me to find houses for her.
Okay.
She wants to be.
Yeah.
And but now she's like, yeah. Like,
No. Yeah.
so how do I just close that deal and get it assigned tomorrow? Inside agency, is that?
It could be, yeah. And there's also procuring cause. Like, if that other agent has already showed her a house and she doesn't tell you that, or is the one that sent her that house, and then you go show her and you write up the contract, that agent could say, nope, I'm the one that found it. I get paid, you don't. Right? Yeah. So if it were me, I would just explain to her to say, listen, similar to like an attorney, that's kind of how we work, right? You probably wouldn't want to have 2 separate attorneys working on the same case at the same time, because chances are you're going to get mixed information. You're also going to create a lot of chaos for those 2 attorneys. I would ask her, I would say, based on how our meeting today went, who do you feel like would be the better option? You're good. And I'd also play the exclusive. I'd play the exclusive game. I know you're a new agent. You probably want to get a deal, but I would tell her, I'd be like, listen, I'd love to work with you. That'd be great, but in order to do so, I need to know that you're all in on me. I wouldn't say it like that though, but that's kind of what you're implying. So I would say, based on how, so I'll give you my slides. I would say, here's the thing. If the other agent has not taken, here's the thing. The cheat code to being a good agent, in my mind, is education and expectation. The more I can educate a client to get them up to at least a similar level of knowledge as me related to their, what they're trying to accomplish, and set proper expectations, they will trust you all day long, because you're the one that's provided them basically the keys to making it happen and the reference as to how. If this other agent is just there to be a door opener and paper pusher, you're quickly going to look more valuable when you actually take time to like almost nurture them and explain to them what is happening behind the scenes, right? So if it were me, I'd present this to them. If they already know some of the information, just breeze through it, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a refresh at the very least for them. And then at the end, I would say, answer any questions, get familiar with what they're looking for, really show them that you're like going to go to work for them. But then I'd gatekeep at the last second. I'd say, okay, great. Well, based on how today went, who do you feel like is a better option for you? I'm not really sure. I need to think about it. Okay, no problem. Listen, if you decide you want to work with me, that's so great. I'd love the opportunity. It sounds like I could really, help you with what we're trying to accomplish here. If that's the case, I'll have to send you a document. Yeah. Yep. if that's the case, if you decide you want to work with me, just let me know. If that's the case, I'll send you over a document to make our relationship official. And if not, no harm, no foul. I bet this other person is going to take great care of you, or at least I hope they do. You know, we'll be in touch. I would not leave the option open to play both sides because you're wasting your time. Like, let me ask you a question. If a guy was like, hey, I kind of want to date you, but I'm also seeing her over there, and I'm not really sure, maybe I'll just date you both at once. What would you say? Yeah. Yeah, you'd probably be like, oh, I'm good. Yep. So, I mean, yeah, there's a reason we like exclusivity for, you know, for this type of thing. Right.
So
Yeah.
go with that person.
If there's no exclusivity.
If there is
Yep.
not,
Well, my thought is like this other, like, I don't know how I like to look at it, especially when I was like definitely more full-time as an agent. I'm like, this other person will be here when you need them, but there's no guarantee this is going to happen. But with me, like, I'm guaranteeing this is going to happen. So I'm not going to take my, like, the difference is they're there to help when you need them. I'm here to actually make it happen. Like, I will be the reason it happens. They're just there to help you if it happens. Does it make sense? There's a big difference.
The last part of what you said, I'll invest so much into this, so I need to know that that's typical.
Yeah.
Like, because that agreement is not that you are working, that's that you guys are together, and it's team.
Hey, Ritz, I don't know if you're on here still, my friend. I'm going to stop sharing. Looks like people are off of Zoom.
right.
I'm going to hit you up later. We still got to chat, but thank you. I'm going to wrap up with these guys. We'll
Yeah.
talk soon.
Take care.
Thanks, brother. Bye.